So I plan on posting the office hours here to the YouTube channel and just sending out an email that sends out the recording to everyone. So you're welcome to share these. Again, the office hours theme for today is going to be assessments. So I'm going to talk mostly about new quizzes, but I want to kind of do some comparison to classic quizzes. It's going to take about 30 minutes. After that, I'll open it up for just general Q&A. And this office hours is always open for networking. So if you guys network with each other, if you talk, if you have questions and you're able to help each other with references, things like that, that's really ideally what we're moving for towards with office hours. So I'll always be open the third Wednesday of the month for Florida at 3:30 Eastern. And we'll get started with today. So assessments, I'll share this presentation as part of the email that I sent out with the recording. The objectives today, just talking through new quizzes, looking through the enhancements that have been made recently. We'll look at why should we use new quizzes. I know there's a lot of, and I have plenty of it myself. There's a lot of PTSD. There's a lot of trauma around new quizzes. We definitely, there's been some pain that we've given over moving to new quizzes over the last few years, longer than that. And so I want to talk through some of that, hopefully give you some more confidence through my own confidence in new quizzes, and I'll show you lots of data and stuff behind that. So talk about migration options and then transition resources that we have that could help you. You can definitely personalize some of these resources and use them yourself as far as training and enablement for faculty instructors or for administrators. So everything we talk through, this might be high level. I'm not going to do a lot of demonstrations. I'm just not equipped to do demos with new quizzes. So when I show things, if there's follow-up questions, if we need to set up time to kind of go through on a more technical basis with one of our experts, we can do that. Feel free. Most of this information at a high level is good for training or introduction, and it will point to the right places to find these resources. And that's kind of my goal. And again, it's very much a faculty instructor point of view or frame of reference for this information. So let's talk about new quizzes. All right, so focusing on new quizzes today, we mentioned this as part of the objectives. I'm going to talk about some different settings, configuration options. If you haven't yet enabled new quizzes, if you haven't turned it on to use it in your instance, I recommend doing that in your test or your beta to start working through some of the options and to get a feel for the enhancements that have been rolled out, especially over the last 6 months to a year. Definitely lots of changes that have been made. So I want to do reminders too. There's no sunset date for classic quizzes. So at one point, this was a while ago, there really was kind of a wall and it felt like everyone was getting backed up against it. We're not doing that anymore. So don't feel pressure that you have to move to new quizzes at any point. Eventually, over time, as we have more and more institutions that move to new quizzes, and hopefully the reason that they move is because there are more benefits to new quizzes than there are for classic, that there are features that are offered in new quizzes that you can't get in classic. Those would be reasons why we see more and more migration at the instructor level and at the school level to new quizzes. Until that occurs, until we get much further down the road, there won't really even be any talk of sunsetting classic quizzes. So you'll have both as an option and we have many schools that use that now. No enforcement date for new quizzes, no sunset date for classic quizzes. Let's talk about some of the course feature options that can be used. So in your settings right now at this point, new quizzes is turned on for everybody. It's in your settings. It's off by default. You have to turn it on in order to use it. You would do that in your account level settings is where you'll find it. You'll find it under the course section for account level settings. You'll see the option for new quizzes there in the state. It'll be off. And then you'll also see a lock next to it. The lock is for course level settings. When you enable something and lock it, you're forcing it down into the course level. So if you turn it on in an unlocked state, you're making it available at the course level for your instructors to turn on themselves. And if it's locked, then it's defaulted on for them at the course level. And then when they go to create an assessment or create a quiz, they're going to have the option that shows up. They can select how they want to build that quiz, either classic or new. So this is one or the default option that everyone's starting off from square one. Recommendation one is that you, again, we just talked to this, that you enable it. The state is turned on, but it's unlocked, meaning you're making it an option. We see a lot of institutions do this. It's kind of split. We also see a lot of schools that just jump right into enabling it or turning it on and then forcing it on at the course level. So it becomes an option that instructors can use. So you'll notice when you do have it turned on at the course level, when someone goes to build a quiz, this is the experience they get. You'll see new quizzes, classic quizzes, and there's a checkbox for remember. For anyone that doesn't want to go through the process of having to select new and classic each time at the instructor level, if they select remember my choice, it's kind of like setting the default. And the next time they go to build a quiz, they're going to be presented with that default. They won't have the option to select. They can go back and change that at any time. But the remember my choice, if they select new quizzes and remember, the next time they go to build a quiz, they're going to be building it in new quizzes. So some instructors prefer just to set that. It's always an option. Yeah, so that's kind of what happens in the in that particular experience of building quizzes. So I know this isn't great. I talked about this on Monday with Alabama's office hours. It's not a great experience. I'm sure it doesn't meet accessibility. I don't know for sure. I believe this will change over time. I'm not a fan of it, but the visual indicators for classic and new, this just kind of gives you the key there. When you have it turned on and you're using it as an option, you're either using classic or new. The indicators are classic will be the rocket ship that is not filled in. The new quizzes published will be the rocket ship that's filled in, or the Elon Musk rocket ship. And then the new quizzes that are migrated or unpublished are going to be filled in, and they'll be that similar color to green or gray. Again, that's horrible, but it's filled in and it's a different color. We'll say that. Again, I think over time this will be modified, but for right now, that's kind of your indicators for what you're working in. Just a quick glance in the assessments area and quizzes. All right, let's talk about some benefits for admin, faculty, and student benefits. Administrator benefits for using new quizzes. They work well, and the new quizzes are built to work with Blueprint course functionality. So if you are a Blueprint user or you plan on using Blueprints in the future, the ability to lock down portions of Blueprints and how you distribute content and update content within Blueprints, it's a good functionality. New quizzes works well with that. So there's a benefit there for as an administrator when considering new quizzes in the future. Bulk migration from classic to new quizzes via the API. You can do it via course copy, and then there's the manual process, which was the first to be introduced. So there's multiple ways now to do migration. It's fairly clean now. I know we've had lots of issues over time with migration. Those issues have been fixed and over time, and we shouldn't be running into those same issues. So it's another thing to kind of consider, but also test before, just to build up some security before enabling it. Item bank sharing at the account level is available, and then over time, outcomes reporting will be more robust because it's being built or enhanced over time to fit new quizzes. Again, we're not turning off classic quizzes, but you'll find that resources are being shifted into new quizzes to support and to continue to enhance new quizzes, and you won't find that in classic quizzes. Faculty benefits, there's a lot of faculty benefits for new quizzes. Again, this creates kind of the more of the why should I move over when faculty run into individual scenarios where they need in assessments, it would be nice to have or they need a particular functionality. There's new question types that are offered in new quizzes that are not offered in classic quizzes. 4 of those question types are the stimulus, categorization, ordering, and hotspot. These are not offered in classic quizzes. They give nice feature benefits within new quizzes. And there might be some enticing benefits that may eventually lead to migration long term. The features also for faculty accommodations, there are more, and those continue to be enhanced, more accommodations available for new quizzes or giving accommodations to students in quizzes. You can duplicate quizzes, submitting for students or on behalf of a student at the administrative level, waiting period between attempts, shuffling questions and answers, reopen, print with or without answers is available, don't count towards final grade, complete, incomplete, and then aligning, going back to outcomes again, aligning outcomes to each question. Student benefits. Overall, the feedback from students has been good. It's been received well when students are using it. I want to mention if you're an institution where you're brand new, you're just gone through the implementation process, you don't have an option for classic quizzes. Everybody's in new quizzes, and we have less road bumps when that happens. So we can definitely see in those use cases where classic quizzes, no one's been trained or no one's familiar with using classic quizzes. The UI is a much easier take for new quizzes. if you've been using classic quizzes forever and now you're looking at new quizzes, it's definitely there definitely is a curve, a learning curve between the two just on the UI alone. It's different. So for student benefits, the UI is good. They're used to those type of UI changes. They're always looking for benefits or better UI, better interface for them. So for cleaner, modernized quizzing experience, it is better overall than Classic. Being able to pin questions for review is a nice feature. There's interactive question types. We talked about Hotspot as there. That's a great example for increased learning opportunities. Personalized accommodation options, and then the ability to take a printed quiz is another one as far as accommodations go. Migration options. There's 4 ways to migrate a classic quiz to new quiz. One of them has been around the longest. It was the first, and that's the one-to-one migration manually of a classic quiz to new quiz. So from the quizzes index page, you can click on the little, what do they call that? A little hamburger button, 3 dots, and then you have the option to select quiz name and then migrate that quiz. There's also the course copy import. We've had lots of different challenges over time when this was introduced. Uh, Also called bulk migrations. It's from the settings in the course navigation menu. Click copy this course, select import existing quizzes as new quizzes as an option. Other bulk options or other options to do mini quizzes. There's the Canvas course export package or QTI file, which was probably the most recent. That's also from the course navigation menu. You have the export course option. You can select import using existing quizzes as new quizzes. And then the API, REST API, I know the least about this, but the documentation is linked into the slide. If you want to use the API services to migrate, you can do that as well. There's a note here. It's important if you wish to for your question banks to be imported as item banks, classic to new quizzes, they have to be nested within a question group in the classic quiz in order to do that. It's just the way that it's formatted or configured when it goes from classic to new. As long as that's done, you won't have any issues with migrating question banks to item banks. If they're not nested, you will. They won't come over. You just won't see them. The items or questions themselves as an item bank won't be imported. Recommendation 2. We kind of talked about this one too, but new quizzes. You'll see that there's additional options at the account level when we talk about migration. So as part of a transition plan, some institutions want to have more of an admin control or more of a kind of a finite date of transition. And so some of these settings will help control that. You have the new quizzes migration during course import copy. That's a default setting. You can turn that on. And that means that now defaulted when someone does the course copy from their own course at the instructor level, it's going to automatically bring the classic quizzes over into new quizzes. So it kind of takes out the guesswork or takes out the option or the chance they might forget to do that on their own. And that's done more at an account level where you want everything moving over. You see additional options as well. The new quizzes migration enabled by default. That's one step closer to just making the full transition. And then the new quizzes migration is required is the final option. When all 3 of those are enabled, that's really the kind of the final step into we're transitioning over to new quizzes. Instead of default to new quizzes, this has been changed now. The verbiage is actually disable classic quizzes. And so the final level of all of these being enabled and transitioning would be that the last switch to turn off classic quizzes, meaning it makes it completely unavailable, is called disable classic quizzes. So the verbiage before it was confusing to say default to new quizzes. Instead, again, we kind of call it what it is, which is the off switch for classic. So that'll be the last thing to do. I don't think I have anybody at that point, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. I would say, though, we are at a much higher number of parodies. I'm guessing it's around 93%. It's in the 90s of classic quizzes features that are available in new quizzes. Slowly, over time, through all of those enhancements, every month, you can go look back on even the most recent enhancements. Every month, there's usually something small that gets rolled out into new quizzes. If you go into the new quizzes hub, which we'll talk about here in just a bit, you'll see all the resources are there. They also have their own roadmap. You can check that. Over time, they've been pretty true to the dates and the roadmap or the timeline of getting things rolled out. And so that's kind of where we're at as far as parity goes. Both of these resources, the new quizzes hub mentioned, if you haven't bookmarked this and you are tracking new quizzes and you're trying to figure out a time to do this, best place to go because the roadmap's featured here. This is also where we'll find the transition tool guide, which will also, I'll show that here in just a moment. And again, the new quizzes has its own roadmap. It's separate. It's part of Canvas roadmap, but if you want to see all the separate bullet points that are just for new quizzes, you can take a look at it in the quizzes hub. There's a ton of stuff here. There's a ton of enhancements planned around reporting. Again, we start to see a lot of integration to outcomes and rubrics over time. So those are all great reasons to keep track of it. Comparison documents super helpful too. It's also in the transition or in the hub as part of the transition toolkit. This is a great way to look at if it's in classic quizzes, is it also in new quizzes? This is parity. There's some items that are not, but if they're not, then we can talk through. There's different workflows or different ways to get that functionality. But for the most part, everything is you'll see is crossing over from classic to new. Even the ability to create it as a survey unofficially, you can do that with new quizzes now. Early on, they said, no, we'll never have new quizzes. You'll never be able to do a survey. We're never officially going to say that as a survey tool. There are question types within new quizzes that can facilitate basically administering a survey as a new or with a new quiz. So this is a great document. Last updated in April. I think there'll probably be another update at some point going at the end of fall as well. But this is really helpful. Just a quick reference on where's everything at. So both of those are linked into the slide, and you guys will have access to that. Additional considerations, Commons functionality is not there yet, but it's close. It should be here actually by the end of this year, fourth quarter. We should have full integration into Commons for new quizzes, which is fantastic when it comes to sharing content and even sharing or moving content within your own instance. Proctoring tools continue to add more and more proctoring providers are now able to integrate with new quizzes. I will say this, I don't like to ever make it sound like we're throwing anybody under the bus, any LTI. Canvas is now fully enabled for integration to any proctoring solution. Regardless of what you might hear from LTIs, so you'll hear some that say, no, we're waiting on Canvas. At this point, every proctoring solution, a vendor has access to a test environment, and they're able to test their own code for production and development, and everyone should be able to integrate with Canvas. So Canvas's APIs are prepped for that. That took a long time. We weren't there until last year. We are there now. So just make sure you check with the provider of the proctoring solution. If they have any trouble at all, you're getting pushback and they're like, no, we really need Canvas to do this thing. Let me know, contact your CSM. We can talk to partnerships, the partnerships channel. That's their job, is to connect vendors so that you don't have to if they're having any issues with Canvas or we need to communicate. So use that team, use me to get to that team if you have questions. Respondus Lockdown Browser, the image issue is resolved. I need to update this slide. I forgot to do this from Monday. Both of these last two are actually resolved. There is, from time to time, there are image issues that pop up. Respondus was the biggest one. That one has been resolved, but there might be some other image. I need to check the known issues page to see if things pop up from time to time. Hide student response available window, not yet available. That is available now with some of the granular changes to the student results. All right, resources from Instructure. We kind of talked about some of these. The slide's jam-packed full of resources, so I won't go too much into detail about these, but let you kind of pick through them yourself. The new Quizzes Hub, I mentioned that. There is a transition toolkit for admin and faculty. The toolkit's great. There's a lot of information in here. All the information are stuff that you can kind of change the marketing on and brand yourself or use. This is great. The change management plan, communication plan, or training plan, all printable, or you can pull them up in Google, and again, you can make changes to them. These are all just very detailed plans or templates that you can use to kind of help transition your full community from classic quizzes to new quizzes. So lots of helpful information in here. Again, it was meant to be built as a template so that you can use them for training opportunities or for your own training teams or however you guys want to kind of talk through migration and what that looks like. I'm also always happy to jump on a call and kind of talk through what does your migration look like? What's the timeline? What are we looking for? What's the objectives? Helping to answer some of those questions you're going to get. That's the biggest challenge with classic to new is you're going to get instructors with very, very specific scenarios on quizzes that they've made in classic that they just can't figure out how to make it in new quiz or new quizzes, how to make it work. Let me know, bring me into those conversations and we can talk through that and try to work through resolving. Because usually 9 times out of 10, we can do it in new quizzes. It's just, there's a couple steps to get there. Or again, the learning curve is different because of the UI. You also find the additional resources. The FAQ is great. You have that document we saw earlier. These checklists are great too. So you're looking for, like, if you're a checkbox person, and I am, you have both for the instructor and the administrator. You have a printable or Google Doc checklist on, hey, as we're migrating, I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I want to dot all my T's and cross all my I's. This is a great document to use to make sure that you're hitting everything because it has all the resources referenced and linked into the document. It's great for instructors as well. These are all the resources we just mentioned. The only one that's not in the group that I just showed was the Dear Danielle videos. Danielle's a customer success manager. Mentioned her before. She's created a lot of training type resources and content. She's great about walking through new quizzes. Doesn't have the most recent updates, but it's still a fantastic resource to use just to get somebody familiar with how should we start building new quizzes. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Training services portal. All right, this needs to be updated. There used to be a free training module in your training services portal. It's not free anymore. They took it away. It's behind a wall. I don't want anybody to pay for that, so we're gonna keep it between us. I know this is being recorded, but just between us, my Florida peeps. If you guys want that quiz training session back, just let me know and I can turn it back on in your instance so you can use it. I would rather you use it as a resource to train than you don't need to pay for it. I would rather you have it to train or to help the ease transition from classic to new. So let's just let me know. Reach out to me if you want to get that re-enabled. It has been turned off. I think they turned it off at the beginning of October. End of September was the end where it's been running free for about a year, and then they finally moved it out of free. And I don't know why, but it's a great resource. It's about a 45-minute training module, very comprehensive, and it's a great resource to use. So we can get it turned back on. That's just more reference to it. And I think this actually references out to the training agenda for it. We also have other recordings that have been done. And yes, they were done about a year ago, but they're still very relevant. There's a track 1 for newbies, track 2 for existing new quiz users, slide decks for both, recordings still available for both. You also, if you want to go this route, we talk about this in training services, but if you ever want to build an a la carte training program, and maybe for a short time, it doesn't have to be for the life of your contract, you can pick and choose different training sessions that have already been built by our training team, Learning Services. They have great modules, and you can kind of package together your own training. So if you want to customize that a little bit, we have ready-made training courses. We have consulting hours available. We have advanced training portal options or training services portal options that include some of this additional new quiz services, new quiz training. So you can kind of see some of the options there, but also let me know. I never want to promote paid services too much in the office hours or my webinars, but I think it's great if there's a short-term goal, if you want training that's very specific or detailed and you don't have the resources to put it together yourself, then we can put together a training plan. Question types. These just go through quickly the new question types that you'll find in new quizzes that you won't find in Classic. We mentioned categorization, ordering, stimulus, and hotspot. So each one of these will give you kind of a bullet point on what exactly does it do. Ordering, pretty self-explanatory. Students can drag and drop, place them in order, and then instructors can also add labels to the top and bottom. We also have a hotspot, which is a really cool feature. I do want to mention this hotspot is not always accessible to any users that are requiring keyboard only access or screen readers. Over time, I think there'll be some enhancements to this, but that question type in particular right now doesn't meet those standards, just simply because of the functionality of it. If you'll take a look, it's really linking into an image and the clickable area in an image to answer the question. They are still good though for question types when it talk about nursing programs and other specialized programs like that. Hotspot's it's a really big winner for question type. Categorization is placing answers in the correct categories, and you can add distractors with this. So there's some examples of this for categorization. Stimulus, allowing instructors to insert content on the left side of the quiz that stays with the right, scrolls with the right, but it can be applicable for multiple questions. And so example of that is we have a map on the left, questions to the right pertain to the map, and the map stays with the questions as the questions move. Fill in the blank, all kinds of different options for fill in the blank. Multiple blanks can be used in a question. Blanks can be text entry, they can be dropped down, or they can include a word bank to select from. So all kinds of different options and variables for fill in the blank, which is a fairly new question type. That was introduced. Mentioned for nursing licensing exams because we get a lot of feedback and questions about that type of exam. We have the NCLEX functionality, new quizzes, or next generation. And then there's a link actually out to a post that has more information regarding new quizzes and this functionality. And then we see some examples below. Question settings, accommodations. So we have different accommodations on the moderate tab. You can select some of those or add accommodations. With the most recent enhancement this month, I believe rolling out, it allows you to make those accommodations or changes to existing quizzes. This is talking about configurations before implementing the quiz. Duplicate is an option too for new quizzes. From the modules or assignments page, you can duplicate a new quiz. Moderate, moderate. You have options for submitting students on the moderate tab. And feature settings, shuffle questions, waiting period, on-screen calculators available as well, basic and scientific within the editor of the quiz, and then reopen quiz as an option. Recent updates, I added these just recently, just so some of the most recent enhancements. I said recent a lot. Sub account bank sharing is available. It's really quick and easy to do to share an item bank across not just the account, but into sub accounts as well. Custom feedback and results is available now as well, so you can use formatting. Actually, within the RCE, that was an enhancement that was made, but that can be done in the feedback area of quizzes. Then adding time to existing quiz sessions is also available as well. Mention that one. Recent updates also manage student results. We just is going through an update this weekend. There's a screencast video that does a good job. It's about a minute long. It goes through all of these options. Lots of granular options to enable and choose when and how you show the results to students. We mentioned the toolkit. FAQ page is fantastic. The transition toolkit is awesome. This is linked to it as well, as we saw earlier in the session. So that is all of the stuff that I have for new quizzes. So again, I'm always happy to follow up with more information. As far as level setting classic to new, it is we're getting there, and more as we see more enhancements. If you look at the roadmap, we continue to enhance, and I think ultimately the goal is to continue to enhance new quizzes beyond classic quizzes, so that it's, you know, if you have an instructor looking for a particular way that they want to build an assessment, particular or specific question types, that really the answer becomes over time new quizzes naturally, rather than having to say, hey, we need you guys to move over to new quizzes. So allowing both to kind of exist as options to build assessments is great. But over time, you will start to feel more and more less support, or you won't see enhancements being made to classic quizzes. And so long-term plan, I think that kind of sets new quizzes up to be kind of have that natural migration flow happening to it. So I'll open up the rest of the office hours at this point, and I'm happy to take questions, and also just always open for feedback or follow up on any of this stuff. So if we ever need to jump into a follow-up call, I make myself available for just different high-level trainings for faculty and instructors as well. So if you ever had new quizzes, you want to have a quick session, or some type of training, if I can be helpful to that, feel free to invite me, or we can talk about it, and I can be available to answer questions. So I'm also going to share these slides, so you guys will have these, and I have a couple schools that will also use these this particular slide deck for that type of high-level training. So. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time. I'll open it up, and then again, we'll have the office hours is open, so you guys are welcome to talk to each other, network, or you don't have to hang around if you don't want to. So I won't make you.